Hi, my name is Luke Seymour. I've been doing lots of dungeon mastering for a couple of years, but most recently in coming months I've been doing like 4 sessions a week, including the campaign Curse of Strahd. Now, I'm part of a group, well, it's Dungeon Masters like group for Facebook, and there was an off branch to deal with Curse of Strahd, and I've been involved in lots of topics with a friend of mine who is posting in that group. And the topics that he posts is to do with Strahd getting free. Oh, rather, firstly, sorry. Big major thing. There are spoilers in this to the campaign, so spoiler warning, all that stuff. Don't watch if you don't want spoilers. Okay? Awesome. I think that's covered that time, but yeah. So Curse of Strahd basically is being Strahd. He is a Lord Vampire of Barovia that's trapped within his own realm. Now it's described in this that he is kept there and he kind of fills it up with his own subconscious. He's kept there by the dark powers as part of the pact that he makes with them. And he cannot leave due to this pact, but he is Lord and Master of it. And the souls that are trapped there are continuously recycled round, along with his own substituted psychonscious. I'm talking about Inception, where you fill the dream space with your own subconscious that inhabits it. And he actually has that going on, so there really is nothing that gets out of it. So there's a lot of discussions I see that has to do with what should happen if Strahd gets out, or rather, how does Strahd get out? A lot of this goes in the way of Strahd seeks redemption for killing Sergei in some way. He breaks his pact. Barovia goes downhill. It all opens up. There is, Strahd replacing somebody, which is what the book says. Strahd believes that if somebody can replace him, then they will take his place, and he can then go free of Barovia. But Strahd will never believe that anybody can replace him. He will test them, which always is the players that come in. He will test them, but ultimately he will find them to yield. Yeah, oh, sorry, I was half looking at the book trying to quote it, quote unquote, because if I prepare this stuff and don't just impulsively do things, perhaps I would actually be getting somewhere. But no, basically, Strahd tests the players in the belief that they may overcome it, but ultimately he decides that, no, they're weak of will. Only a Zarevich will be worthy of the seat of Barovia. But to my... there's several ways I can talk about how he could achieve this, because there is actually something in here. But ultimately, when I listen to the description, I believe all approaches that talk about Strahd being free, are all wrong. At least in the context of hosting a Curse of Strahd campaign. Now, if you want to do your own homebrew campaign where Strahd is free and he's holding hands with all the druids in the land, then that is absolutely your business. But I believe that if you are hosting with the idea of making it a Curse of Strahd campaign, you absolutely must have that despair that you are trapped, and so is Strahd, and you are the only things in his entire world that he has new to play with. And he will torment you, he will curse you, he will make sure your days here are horrible. And I believe that's really key to the whole factor. If there is an easy way of getting out of Barovia, then there is no tension. There is no fear of staying in it. Because a lot of this, I believe, is the despair in knowing that, no, there is probably no way out of it. You are going to be stuck here, and unless you beat Strahd, this OP creature, then this is how you are. If you don't want to have a campaign that's filled with misery and stuff, then don't host Curse of Strahd. Granted, you can make it a very happy Curse of Strahd, maybe. Lots of grim humour, as it's suggested in the book. But I still believe that if you are not having things Well, okay. So I believe Straud should not be able to leave. Otherwise, if he would have done so earlier. If I go to his stats, I'm pretty sure he's got like a great intelligence mod. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, his intelligence is insane. It is +5. He's got amazing charisma. Basically, he hasn't got less in the way of like 16 unless it's his wisdom, and even then that is 15. So this dude is really fucking smart, and he has the location of dark powers to renegotiate his pacts. If he had a means of getting out that didn't in any way tramp on his own ego, he would have done it. He's had Vistani to go out into the real world, try to communicate with other high-ranking wizards and stuff to have broke him out. All of this has been up to par for him for the past, I'm vague on the details, but I'm pretty sure 300 to 200 years, in which time he could have absolutely got something sorted for himself, and he hasn't. And I believe that's the main reason to go with the reason why he will never accept anybody else to reclaim his throne off him so he can be free, and that is because of his own pride. He is a conqueror when he was alive, but now that he's in this undead state, he's just festering in it. He's enjoying his spoils, and in that sense, it ties back to what I've learned is the definition of classical vampires, where werewolves are the expression of rage, vampires are the expression of gluttony. So it would make sense if Straud was a creature that would talk the talk but would not walk the walk. He would be happy to continuously conquer small little tidbits of adventures that trickle in, but he may not have any grand conquests anymore, at least with this 5e edition, just because of his ego. His ego will not tolerate being considered a lesser to any other to maybe work with, maybe not to even renegotiate with the dark powers, as he is already a king, he is already a master, and this is his reward for all of his suffering. But getting back on point, should you have Straud be free, and if so, how? I maintain no, he should not be free, because I believe his own ego will trample on him. But if he did get free, what would you do? Well, I've seen various people talk about, firstly, where would you put Straud, location. Its land is based off a Pacific region in Faerun, which location escapes me, but it did actually start off there, because all of the history and all the architecture is actually based from Faerun, but it's long forgotten now. So I would imagine all of that land would just plop back into some space. Otherwise, it could just open up in any material realm whatsoever. Straud's barovia is its own pocket dimension, so it could spill back over into any dimension you so chose. The conditions that this would happen all seem pretty vital to Straud, as it should be. If Straud turns good, for whatever reason, well, I would say in this case, he still has all of his packs stuck together, so barovia would still be maintained. It's just that Straud will now be willing to consider good aligned sort of options. One of these options, and I discovered this, or at least I thought of it, and then I thought this would actually be a good deal. Straud was already getting dark magics from the dark powers before he killed his brother Sergei, which was the nail in the metaphorical coffin to getting him to become Lord of Barovia. So my thoughts were, if a character could in some way do a true resurrect on Sergei, basically undoing the death that Straud did beforehand, that might work. And if Straud then does something roleplay wise that a GM would consider good aligned, then the dark powers will be unhappy with Straud's position. I mean, in all likelihood, they would take his soul to the damnable abyss where it belongs, but other roleplay factors may come into being. The dark powers would be reluctant. They would not like to let go of Barovia and all the horrors festering in there. But they will maybe say, well, we're done with Straud now. He's done his purpose, so now we're going to seek out and try to corrupt subsequent lands. And there's lots of dark entities in Barovia that would go out there to do it, but they may all be cleansed because Faerun has lots of active magic users that are all able to purge the land of evil. So it wouldn't last long, and it wouldn't be to the satisfaction of the dark powers. The other thing I saw was discussions to do with a wish spell. The discussion started off talking about the Amber Temple, and the Lich that's there is just holding on to a whole bunch of magic. Some of this could include a wish spell. Now, all magic that goes through Barovia can be influenced. So it talks about if you summon a wall of stone, that you should see reliefs of screaming faces screaming out through it. If you summon Spirit Guardian or Spiritual Weapon, it should be like a ghostly apparition. Summon Steed, it will be an undead horse. So with a wish spell, it's a very, very mighty spell, but I don't see any reason it can't have the same tinge of sadness and death that everything else in Barovia comes with. So I don't see why, as a DM, if you should consider this route, you shouldn't add a curse to it. Or more rather, that there should be some sort of sad, despairing sort of twist to it. Now, when somebody does the spell Commune with Another God, Straud basically is the call girl that says transferring you now, or he can just decide to talk to you as well. He can pretend to be the god, or decide to start talking to you as that god. So, maybe there would be a way that Straud could influence such a wish spell, as he can influence so many other bits of magic here. But I leave that just for food for thought. The main part was a discussion that Straud would be trying to unravel the Lich's spellbook. One such option I came up with was that if he somehow had a spellbook with Wish in it, and he was trying to decipher it, but the Lich had a code to it or something, he might employ the help of one very high-powered wizard, whose mind is definitely scrambled at this point, Mordecai, who's all the way up in the north, being a goat, you know, just as he is in his mobile tower and whatnot. He would never assist Straud, but a DM might find a reason to make all that happen. And if that kind of comes up, then there's another route. But if the event of a wish spell does happen, I found there was two options. The players have the wish spell, and they're left with a choice. One of these choices is, we wish to be out of Barovia. The spell works. The players all leave Barovia, and the mists will come back for them. The Vistani can come back for them. Werewolves can come back for them. All this stuff can be at play, but the mists of Barovia did sweep over them, you know, without much of a warning. They were just given a vague direction, and the mists were there to collect them. Any Vistani could act out or play out any sort of role they needed to get them into whatever location would have the mists begin to welcome them back. The players may choose to give up, may choose to just stay at home and never leave it. That is a valid option. It's the equivalent of a TPK, but it's a valid option. And in that way, there is that dull sort of sense of pessimism and despair that they are now terrified to leave their houses without entering back into Barovia, thankful to the wish that brought them out of it, but swearing never to go back to that hellhole in any case whatsoever. In which case, that's a success. To me, that is the campaign completed, but a character changed by the horrors they've seen. Thumbs up. But the other wish was to free Straud, or to change, or to just have Straud automatically be deleted from the universe. That could go on. If that was the case, then what do you do with Barovia? And as we discussed earlier, it will explode out into the multiverse, it will shed its evil everywhere, and all that jazz. But would a wish spell be too over the top to involve? I don't think so. If there is anything that sounds too overpowered that the players ask for, such as we want to become Lords of Barovia, they become Lords of Barovia. Straud becomes free, he becomes mortal, but no less powerful back in the world of Phalan. And he messes about becoming more OP and even more insane. And the players are now in Straud's former position. They need some way of escaping, but they don't have his ego. They do not have his ego, which is the key difference, because they will happily let anyone be Lords of Barovia, including anybody who has a soul in Barovia. Needless to say, however, everybody that does have a soul that feels brave enough to try and escape Barovia does, while by the end of the book it says that the inhabitants that were conjured by Straud's mind that try, evaporate, and those with a soul that do, finally escape. So, if this is all known to the players, it comes down to a souled entity that has been cursed and tormented in Barovia. It's basically asked to make a sacrifice to keep hold of it, maybe with plans to do good. Very likely, it could be Tatiana, if she is never reunited with Sergei, but the condition is that once their souls are free, they do reunite. So maybe it could be dealt with somebody like, any of the key NPCs that could be used to fight Straud. All these might be valid options to be Lord of Barovia now. And Straud goes free and he caused havoc in the natural world. And then the players, having switched ownership, then chase after him. He still has stats to be good and OP, definitely, but no longer a vampire. It's more than likely, I believe, that his first key order of business is to vampire himself back up again. I believe that's very key. One other thing that was discussed, and this also interested me, and this would be another way of how Straud would escape Barovia. I don't think this is valid, but it's an option, or at least an idea. So, a multi-dimensional space, a pocket dimension, who's to say what size it could realistically be in Phalan, or the prime material plane? So, why can't it be very small? Why can't all of Barovia be contained within or around a single coffin? All the mists of Barovia that would otherwise be in the prime material plane, all flushed in to a coffin. And the players then thought, well, carry that coffin around. And Straud cannot leave it, but he could certainly influence people through it. If anybody was to try to enter the coffin with Straud in it, they would be sucked into Barovia as it is in game. Or if Straud was get a ghostly claw out and snatch him in. The Vistani would carry it. Madame Eva might have some ways of trying to make it difficult for him in his feeble state. But basically, the rules are still the same. Straud is trapped in Barovia. It's just that he can now actually meet face to face with people, so long as Vistari carry him rather than carry a message, which just saves him some time. But he could still never do combat. Well, that's a lie. No, that won't be a lie. That won't be a lie. I think it's very important that Straud can't, if he is in this state, and if you consider this state, Straud cannot affect the material realm. But, aside from just his voice and just his influence, the Vistani can affect the material realm, and they carry a coffin that holds all of Barovia in, and with Straud in it. So Straud can therefore be just brought to other creatures, and they can be influenced through him via this means. I believe this would add a particular... It's a bit crazy in terms of how he will be in the scene. It's more than likely that Straud, after being set up in this way, would seek out a safe place to be kept, and he would amass a following, dragging a multiple few into Barovia while doing so. But still, he would likely not be taken to some lord's mansion to then just chat with them for an evening while the Vistani then carry him back, because there's too many elements that would then try to destroy the coffin and Barovia with it, and maybe they might succeed. more than likely the coffin breaks, Barovia just spills out into the form it was before. But yeah, just options to play around. Might not be worthwhile. But those are my thoughts on Straud and any ways that he might escape Barovia. Not to be taken literally, just thoughts while I thought of them. Hope this was helpful to some DM out there. Alright, bye bye.